Hey everybody, we are back. We are reviewing the season finale of The X-Files. It has been 6 long weeks of new episodes and 6 weeks within the show.
Boy, howdy, has it been a long 6 weeks.
It doesn't make any sense. Tad specifically says, the internet show host specifically says, it's been 6 weeks since the events of My Struggle Part 1.
And now we have My Struggle Part 2.
And not only did they do all those cases in that time, but they also did all of their re-crediting at the FBI. You know, you have to get certified for field duty again if you've been out for that
They're
long.
full agents again.
Yeah.
And now they're saving the world?
Yeah.
No, the problem with My Struggle Part 2 is everything about it.
Multitudinous.
Yeah. You know that segment at the beginning of each episode, previously on the X-Files, and they show you clips of what happened in previous episodes? Sure. I feel like this show just went to the very end of the episode with those clips. It moved through events so quickly, and everything seemed so disconnected that the entire episode was a previously on the X-Files.
What happens?
And then it ends as if the episode's about to begin.
Yeah. Well, what happens in this episode is we see that, okay, so this whole conspiracy is coming to a head. Turns out only people with alien DNA are going to survive
this conspiracy,
a virus.
Which was only set up in maybe 2 previous episodes immediately.
First off, I liked this episode better when it was the season finale of the 2nd season of Millennium.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it's the same damn thing.
Millennium.
It's the exact same plot.
Tell our viewers about the Millennium finale. What happened? Because they knew they weren't going to get renewed.
Yeah, okay. So Millennium, the 2nd season of Millennium, another show by Chris Carter, takes place in the exact same universe as the X-Files.
There's even a crossover.
They decided that there was going to be an apocalypse and the entire world was going to get killed off by a virus. And the 2nd season finale of Millennium, which was going to be the series finale initially, was about Frank Black and his family trying to hide from the virus, and then Frank Black ending up killing his wife to save his daughter. And then they found out they were coming back. And then Fox was like, we'll do more. And they had to pretend that whole episode, which was made it very clear that the world was ending, they had to pretend the entire episode was only isolated in this one part of America, which means that if Frank Black had simply left that part, it would have been fine and he wouldn't have had to kill his wife, and it didn't make any sense. But the intensity of that episode, that's an incredibly intense episode if you look at it in a vacuum of Millennium.
Right.
And here, they're doing kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same problem, which is it feels so small. The world is ending. The only reporter who's on it is an internet guy. Well, CNN isn't doing anything about this.
There's only the internet guy. Scully and Scully Jr. they don't go anywhere. It's like the world is ending and they're in a hospital, and there's even a line of dialogue to that effect. Well, this was the best place for us to hang out. It's
but scope.
Can't you go to another location so we know that this is happening worldwide instead of just seeing vague images on screens in the background?
Insular, and
it feels insular, and it doesn't feel like the X-Files. This sort of world's everything's finally crashing down.
It feels like a series finale to the X-Files when it actually all pays off and it actually means something and no one can deny it anymore.
But what does it mean?
Exactly. One of the tricky things with the new season of the X-Files, all the Chris Carter episodes in particular, which, by the way, the worst episode of this season. I'm sorry. Chris Carter, let other people do it, man. His episodes were, and they had the noble idea, which is we're going to incorporate the conspiracy theories of the present day into the X-Files milieu. It's a good idea on paper. In practice, it plays like it's dangerous. This is an anti-vaccination episode. This is an episode that's all about everyone who was vaccinated for smallpox, you're dead. You're going to die. It's like the government's out to get you. And that's... When you not only have that conspiracy theory, but you give it to Scully, who is a universally culturally accepted voice of reason, it would be like if you had Superman or Captain America saying, yeah, let's go to war with everyone who isn't American. It's an ugly sentiment, and I'm not sure it applies. And I know some people are already thinking as we get comments why don't you just stop talking about the social issues and talk about the show? Because the show is about the social issues. Well, they're directly talking about it.
We live in an age where conspiracies are better known thanks to the internet.
Yes.
I mean, the X-Files was around in the early days of the internet. Yeah. The X-Files exists, I think, largely because of the internet. Its popularity grew. In the early days of the internet, there were only 2 TV shows: The X-Files and Mystery Science Theater, and that was it. But
and Star Trek.
And Star Trek as well.
To be fair.
But now information is disseminated so much differently in the modern age, and the way we talk about conspiracies is. The tone of the conversation is so much different. So if you're going to tackle these issues on a show like The X-Files, you need a lot more time to breathe.
Yeah.
You're going to need to deal with vaccinations in this one episode. You're going to need to deal with internet kooks in this other episode.
Yeah.
You can't sort of mash them all together in this two-part episode that for some reason bookends the series and expect us to have any sort of cogent narrative or anything that we can really take away from that other than here's bits and tastes of little pieces of conspiracies that we're kind of familiar with. We're going to fold it into the X-Files, and it's going to be this big sort of mashup, bouillabaisse ball that we can't really taste.
Someone was commenting on my Facebook feed, Rick Myers, another film critic, when I was talking about this episode, he said, what did you expect from the X-Files? It's like the X-Files didn't grow up with us. That's the thing. The X-Files was this proto-idea of a pop culture phenomenon show with an ongoing narrative. And honestly, we were used to being dissatisfied. It was like Lost. They never gave us the answers we wanted, and they gave us the answers we didn't want that led to more questions, and it was frustrating.
Well, and that was very much the milieu of the day. It was sort of like, that was the comment on the politics of the day. There weren't any answers, and it was difficult to come to a conclusion.
But when you apply that not only to the contemporary world of politics and conspiracy theories, but also the contemporary world of drama, where shows like, I don't know, Battlestar Galactica have completely changed the way we look at this kind of genre fiction in terms of what we expect from a satisfying dramatic arc.
I would say 24, but yeah.
24, anything that has an elaborate, like you can't watch the episodes out of order.
Right.
That was anathema to TV. That was a bad idea in TV unless it was like a daytime soap opera. Like you weren't really encouraged to do that.
Now that's every show.
Yeah, because who knew if you were going to see every episode? Now you can binge it all, so that it helps. The X-Files hasn't really changed with that, and so they do kind of shove these things in together, and it does feel somewhat unsatisfying. I love the X-Files, but I think it's naive to overlook the show's many, many flaws, and I think it's dangerous to say that it's okay. All of its flaws are okay today just because the X-Files is back.
Well,
that is incredibly low standard for our art.
I don't think we need to even go that far. I think we can just look at this episode and say, wow, this is badly written. Wow, this is badly executed. My Struggle Part 2 makes no sense into itself or as the second part of the first part of that episode or as a cap to the X-Files. It's dissatisfying all around. And especially since we came back, we had 6 episodes. There were certain things they needed to do. We needed to address the kid, which they did in 3 of the 6 episodes.
To the extent that it felt like the entire season was building to meet him at the end.
Yeah, building to some sort of reunion, or we figure out what he looks like,
and now
or
we figure out we need to
afar.
find him in like the next season, but it's not satisfying.
Well, and I think Chris Carter did this on purpose. He's leaving us in a way where we still need to see what the kid looks like, and the world is going to end, but we're not going to see what it is because he wants to tease us that way. Yeah. And I appreciate his daring in wanting to tease us, but screw you, buddy. Give us something, goddammit.
We had 6 episodes, and so many of them were filler, and you're going to like shove a huge arc into 2 bookends? You can't do that.
Either you have, you need an episode where you deal with all the emotional stuff. 1 episode, that's all you deal with. You need 1 episode where you deal with just the conspiracy stuff, and that's all you deal with. It needs to be much more clearly delineated.
Or it needs to be spread out evenly throughout every
Exactly.
episode.
It needs to be all exactly one gigantic story arc like they do modern TV.
Because this is a mess.
It's caught in between, and this last episode proves just what a mess that can make.
Bringing back Agents Miller and Einstein, I got to tell you, I am shocked that they were not a done in one. Like those are the joke characters.
One and done.
Yeah, like maybe you bring it back. Like it's like the Great Yappy. It's like, oh, what a funny character. Like, oh, there's Mulder and Scully Jr. and we have them in for this one episode that feels like it takes place in sort of a pocket of the X-Files, and then we never reference them again because their whole existence is a meta joke.
Yeah, they were
actually having them in an important episode is
comment on the relationship of Mulder and Scully, so they could kind of see themselves in these characters.
Well, and also you sort of look at the idea of what is the CW version of the X-Files, and like that's a funny idea, but then you bring it to a real episode and it's bizarre.
And here's the new theory that you can glean from the return of those characters. This entire 6-arc structure was a pitch. It was a pilot for another season of the X-Files. It's not season 10. It's the pilot for season 10.
Or the pilot for season 11,
I guess. So, they're going to complete however you want to count it. But
that's a fair point.
They're setting up all these new characters and all these new mythologies, and they deliberately didn't bother to resolve any of them.
Yeah.
So I think they're hoping that fans are going to have such an uproar, what's going to happen here, that, well, I guess we're going to have to bring it back and do more. No, don't do that.
Well, here's the thing.
What you promised us was 6 new episodes. That's all I wanted. That's all I needed.
Here's what I expect.
I don't want you to tease more. I want you to give me what you promised.
I can almost guarantee you that what's going to happen is if they bring it back, and Chris Carter says they're trying, and it's likely, the first episode of the next season is going to wrap everything up, and it's going to go back to status quo.
Which is
that's
fine.
What the X-Files
that's what the X-Files always was.
There's like a little bit more backstory now, and that's all we... and then they finally brought, before we go, they finally brought Annabeth Gish back.
Oh yeah, they brought Reyes back.
They brought Reyes back.
And the CSM. We haven't addressed either of them
I
yet.
know, and like she calls up Scully, and she doesn't recognize it. Like that's how meaningless Reyes was to the protagonist of the X-Files. Who is this? Reyes.
Oh right, Reyes, that other character.
I don't recognize this voice. Who are you? Like it's just it takes her time.
Since I tuned out of the end of the X-Files, I don't remember what happened to the cigarette smoking man or Reyes or Doggett.
I don't remember specific. I know everyone.
I think you can blast me later.
Everyone's already commenting. Some stuff happened to Reyes and Doggett. I don't know. I remember the cigarette smoking man blew the hell up. So at least they addressed that.
That he's like scarred and now monster
scarred
face
and it was a big deal. Like it's not like he's fine. Like at least they addressed that. Good for him. Good for them.
I don't know where they left off, like sort of the relationship between Mulder and the CSM, or the relationship between CSM and Reyes.
It's always been really confusing on purpose.
It's always been confusing on purpose, but they did have sort of this interplay. Like, I'm going to hold cold secrets from you. I'm going to tell you these things. Yeah. And in this last episode, so little lip service is played to their previous relationship. I think we either should have known all of that all along. Like stuff you forgot is now really pertinent.
Yeah.
And as such, the CSM comes across as this completely random presence in this episode. It's like, here's this guy who's been blown up. Who is he? What does he have to say to all of this? He has no active role in the story. He has no active role
he explains
with Mulder.
What's going on.
Kind of, but he explains that he's part of it and that that certain people are being protected, but there's no reason for his plot. There's no motivation for his plot. We don't know what his deal is. And
he says the world's going to end, and if we end it sooner, some people can survive. That's not a great plot, but what are you going to do?
That's a James Bond plot.
That's
an evil billionaire James Bond plot.
I think that's actually the plot to Moonraker.
and The Spy Who Loved Me. It's the same thing. So if you're going to have such a simple James Bond plot, you're going to need that one scene where he says, and here's the reason why, and not just have him be vague about, I'm going to end the world. Why? Because I'm sinister.
I think they go into a little more detail than you're giving it credit for. But this episode, at the very least, needed to be a two-parter to let things breathe and let those dramatic moments work.
Second part.
I know, damn you, X-Files. X-Files. I love you, X-Files. You know I love you. You're my bae. You're my bae.
At least 2 really good episodes this last season.
There were 2 really good episodes, 1 okay episode, and these bookends. But you know what? Was it good to have it back?
It was good to have it back for a little bit.
Yeah. It's like a fling with an old boyfriend or girlfriend, you know? Yeah, it's they come back, you had a good weekend.
You see him again.
And now you remember why you moved on to better shows.
You make out, but then, it's good to have him out.
All right. So, everybody, thank you for joining us for the X-Files. We'll be back if the X-Files ever return, which they probably will.
If there's enough uproar from you people, there's going to be more confusing episodes in the future.
And bring back Harsh Realm. Bye, everybody. Bye.